Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Millennial Money.
So this week we actually had a question from a YouTube subscriber, and they asked what's the best way for them to budget whilst paying off a small amount of debt. So one of the first things we're going to look at is the 50-30-20 rule. So Damien, do you want to explain a bit more about what that is?
Yeah, the 50-30-20 rule is a simple rule to try and help people budget. And the idea being is if you take your earnings, so your income, you spend 50% of it, or you try to get to the point where you're spending 50% on things that you actually need, so essentials. Then the next 30 are on things that you want, so the things that aren't essential but you want to buy. And the last 20% of your money you should be trying to spend on either saving or paying off debt. And so it's a general rule of thumb. I wouldn't get bogged down with it, but it's a good guide of the sort of levels you want to try and aim for that can help you budget but also clear debt.
Yes, and another thing that you can do is swap the 30% and 20% around. So depending on how quickly you wanted to clear your debt and how many wants a month that you have, you could swap it around so that 20% of your monthly salary is spent on wants and 30% is spent on saving or paying off your debt.
Okay, so if we now think about like budgeting, so how do you actually do it? Now, one of the best ways to do budgeting, you have to be able to quantify it. So I've always said on these videos, if you can't quantify it, you can't control it. So that means you need to work out what you're actually spending your money on. If you do that, then you can start trying to fit around something like the 50-30-20 rule. So the best ways to try and quantify it are by using some of the apps that are out there. You can be retro and use paper and pen or Excel spreadsheets to track all of your spending. But what you want to try and do, if you can't be bothered to do that, if you use something like one of the number of budgeting apps out there. So there are things like Yolt is one of the ones. I think you like Emma, don't you? Is one of them.
I like Emma. I like Monzo as well. So it depends what you want really, whether you're using one of the budgeting banks like Starling Bank or Monzo to categorise your spending. So that's slightly different. So by categorising your spending, you can see where your money's going a month. So then that will make you realise what you're spending your money on and what's a need and what's essential and what's a want. Or the other apps such as Yolt or Emma, they let you go through your spending. They also categorise it, but they help you manage and budget better, so you can set goals and stuff like that. But one of the best ways I find is I actually use my Notes app on my iPhone, and I write down, and I went through myself and worked out what all my bills were. Write it down, write the date of the month that the bill comes out, how much is coming out, and when it comes out of my bank account, I actually tick it off. So I manage it my own way as well. So as well as having the budgeting apps, I actually manage it myself because I like to know that I've paid those things and that all my bills are there and categorised in my own way.
So you're kind of like a modern version of retro. You use notes rather than a notepad. So yeah, if you use one of the banks out there, like Lauren said, so things like Monzo or Starling that do a lot of this categorisation for you, but it does mean you have to have an account with them and therefore move all your direct debits over. But the things like Yolt and Emma, they can just work with any bank accounts. You don't have to change anything. You just basically plug them up into your account. So they are, I mean, I've used them and I think they're very, very good. So when it actually comes to managing the money, then something that I always used to refer to as big picture budgeting is something that I quite like. Now, at the moment, banking in the UK is largely free. That means you don't have to pay to have a bank account. So you can have as many bank accounts as you want. Now, of course, there is a minor credit check when you open bank accounts, but what it means is that you can have a bank account for a different budget in your money. So what you could do is you could have your money, your earnings being paid into one account. Then you can set up a range of standing orders that go the next day to move money into other accounts where each account is assigned something. For example, you could have all your bills coming out of one account, including your rent or mortgage. You could have one account for your spending, so when you want to go out. So all you'd have to do then is every time you wanted to go out, you just look what you've got in that account. Don't have an overdraft on that account. And you can have ones for lots of different things. You're saving for holidays, whatever it is. And it means your money goes in automatically into your main account, but then it's farmed out into different silos, different accounts. So all you have to therefore do is just keep an eye on the ones that you're spending on, your spending account, but everything else is taken care of. And you set up direct debits for things like your credit cards so you don't miss any payments, because that could be or will be really bad for your credit rating. Of course, we've got articles on there if you want to try and pay off your credit cards, 0% balance transfers. We've done a video on that, haven't we? Yeah. And we also did one on recently about snowballing all your debt up, so you can ways to pay your debt off even more quickly. So the other thing you could do, of course, is try and generate more income, and that would be things like side hustles or something like that.
Yeah.
So eBaying, selling furniture, or starting something very much like we did with Money to the Masses, was something that was started on the side as a bit of a passion that could eventually turn into something a bit more like a business.
Yeah, and I would say personally, I budget to pay off a small amount of credit card debt. And funnily enough, I have actually used the way that Damien just said, so the big picture budgeting. So I have got 3 bank accounts. One of them is an app-only bank, so I have a Monzo account, and 2 of them are high street banks. So I have one, I call it my bills account. I have another one, I call it my spending account. And then I have my Monzo account for just when I fancy categorising my spending and see how I spend my money. So I get my salary paid into one account, that's my bills account, and then I work out how much a month is my bills. So how much does that come to? Then anything I have left over, I move out of my bills account into my spending account. So that's my spending account on what I want to spend on that month. But from that account, I actually take out some money, which I'm going to use to save or pay off my credit card. Also included in my bills, I actually have paying off a credit card as a bill. So I've got £100 a month direct debit going to one credit card and £50 a month going to another credit card. And that's the minimum I pay every month. And it helps me pay off my debt quickly. So I've actually paid one credit card off in a year by just paying £100 a month. So that works for me. That
deserves a high five for anything, does, Lauren, I have to say. That is what you've got to try and do. That was a perfect example of how you do the sort of big picture. The reason why I always called it big picture was rather than getting bogged down in the sort of minutiae of every transaction, you're using big like budgets, your bills budgets, putting everything together in one place. And then it means you can go through those bills and systematically try and get them cheaper. If you imagine if you got the equivalent of every bill and knocked 10% off it for somehow by shopping around, which is easy enough to do, especially if you've never done it before, then you imagine it's almost like getting a 10% pay rise, isn't it? So if you shop around on all your bills, you'll actually have more money to be able to pay off your debt without actually having to acquire any more money to do it. The other thing is do try and save an emergency fund along the way, because as you pay down your debt, once you've paid off your debt, of course, because there's no point having savings and debt at the same time, because you're just effectively paying to save, because the interest on the debt is much greater than the interest you'd earn on the savings. But once you've paid off your debt, then do try and save an emergency fund along the way. So you've got a couple of months earnings, income put aside for those emergencies. So you don't have to get into any more debt.
And funnily enough, just quickly before we finish off for today, we do actually have an article on our site that Andy wrote about, which is a company that actually looks for the best deals on all of your bills for you. So you don't even have to go out there and search to save money on your bills, because there's an app out there and there's a company out there that does it all for you.
Great. So that is it for this week.
Yep.
Where can people go to find us?
So follow us on our social media channels, our Facebook, Money to the Masses, our Instagram at Money to the Masses, and our Twitter at Money to the Masses with the number 2. Obviously, find us on our website, moneytothemasses.com. And if you like what we're doing, then don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.